later down the line, we can call that customer and say, hey, we're talking to another customer. Do you mind if they call you and ask about our past performance? And most often the answer is no, not at all. Tell them to give us a call. And then we get that endorsement of somebody we've actually worked for saying they did a phenomenal job and they were easy to do business with.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study Series. On today's episode, I have Mark Froehlich, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Analytical AI. It's a Birmingham-based business startup that focuses on leveraging artificial intelligence to enhance security at airports and other high-risk checkpoints. With a background in business, Froehlich joined Analytical AI to help them transform their AI-driven solutions into industry-leading technologies that are now attracting the attention of major U.S. security agencies, which is really exciting. Mark, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So to kick things off here, Mark, I'd love to get from you maybe just a couple of minutes of your background. You know, who you are, where you came from, and how you ended up as the CEO of Analytical AI.
Absolutely. It's a little bit of a strange journey. So started out my career, my first real job was with a Caterpillar dealer, and started as a trainee and worked my way up to treasurer, where, you know, risk management, help with the balance sheet, et cetera, and then also managed their alternative portfolio, investment portfolio. After that, started my own business in the turnaround and distressed area. So I had a practice to turn around companies that were in trouble. And these guys approached me about 2018 and started coming to me for advice. We had a mutual friend, and I was doing that and advising them. And about that time, my partner decided he wanted to sort of slow down a little. He's a little older than me. And his wife wanted to leave Birmingham because the summers here are not fantastic. They're hot and they're humid.
Yeah.
They asked me, you know, hey, we're great tech guys, but none of us have business experience, and asked if I would like to be a co-founder and handle the business side, and thought about it and decided that, you know, I'd like to do that. I want to do something that's very meaningful, and believe that what they were doing was very meaningful, and what we could do could make a difference. And so made the change and came on as their CEO.
Wow. Very, very concise. There was some clear turning points there in terms of just how decisive you were in diving into this. Can you share a little bit about the what kind of inspired you to take the leap? Because I know a lot of people don't understand, I guess, all of the risks as it relates to starting up something like a big business like this. So what was your mindset like back then when you decided to kind of jump into things?
So had been doing the turnaround work for a long time. And turnarounds are interesting. So some of them are fantastic in the way, not in the sense of the result, but in the sense of enjoying the work, the environment, the group you work for. And some of them are just not as much fun. And of course, the worst are when you work for an owner operator. They're the toughest because they've been doing it the way they've been doing it. They have sacred cows they don't want to give up. Whereas if you work for, if it's a bank, if it's a private equity company, all they want is results.
Mm.
And so, you know, it was an interesting career. Finished on a high note. Private equity company owned a manufacturing company in the Chicago area and asked us to go in and fix it. And so commuted back and forth from there. We were fortunate that we ended up with really great results, and we helped them sell the business, et cetera. The decision to make that leap came from really that burning desire to want to make a difference. This is exciting. AI wasn't quite the buzzword then as it is today, but seeing what they could do, and actually back then it wasn't even in security, it was healthcare. And they had created an AI product where it's an ER triage product that patient came in, had stroke symptoms, had CT, CT comes out, stroke, no stroke, showed where the stroke was. So your door to treatment time shrank substantially. Didn't have to wait for a radiologist to read it, a neuroradiologist if it was complex. And we live in the stroke belt here in Birmingham, Alabama. So, looked at it as, hey, we have an opportunity to save a lot of people's lives. Stroke's the biggest cause of long-term disability in the country. And we can change that. And so that was really exciting. And it seemed like it's something we could do to make a material change. Not only that, but I had incredible confidence in the tech people and how they looked at things, how they solved problems. And it was impressive. So, yeah, was it a risky move to go to a startup? Absolutely, because, the numbers aren't exactly in success's favor.
Right.
And so we decided to do this. Unfortunately, healthcare is an odd market. It's not truly a capitalist market. There's no reimbursement for AI stroke detection. And we quickly realized there was no business there. So, I had to break that bad news. If we're going to start up an AI company, we're not going to do it with a stroke product. We're going to have to figure out something else. Two of our guys were absolutely brilliant, had entered a competition that the TSA had put on, and it's for their body detector in the airport. They call it on-person screening. It's the one where you hold your hands in the air and the machine spins around. It's great at detection. The false alarm rate is high. They want to lower it, so they put out a competition. As I recall, you had to be a U.S. citizen to compete. And there were people that were, by themselves working at home, competing. There were large tech companies that we've all heard of competing. There were over 700 teams that entered, and our two guys came third. But the interesting thing about the third is first and second took a while to process the image. Our guys took 2 seconds. So that's the product that the TSA wanted. And it went over to Sandia National Labs. Of course, once you take your prize money on that competition, you give up the IP.
Right.
But my thought there was, hey, the government's not in the IP, but they want the solution. They want what else it can do for them. They want the improvements. The IP is not that important to them. We ended up getting a meeting with the chief scientist at the TSA. And my only thing to him was, hey, look, you buy these solutions on the East Coast, you buy them on the West Coast, we're in Birmingham, Alabama, and all we want is a fair shot. And his response was, I don't care where you are. I just want my problem solved, and I've got a lot more problems than just that body scanner. And he introduced us to a lot of people. We very shortly after that got a nice contract from one of their prime OEMs, and we went to work. And we're odd for a startup in the sense of, instead of being the startup that says, oh, we grew X over X monthly, annually for the first 3 years, we made the conscious decision, we're going to build our reputation for 3 years. It's a different currency, right?
Yeah.
It's not dollars. It's not revenue. It's not. We figured if we could build our reputation, we'd have the foundations of a solid business. And that's what we went about doing, is we built a great reputation. And in year 3, it paid off. In year 3, we pursued 6 contracts and hoped to get 3 of them. And we got all 6. And that really gave us a boost. And then it led to the biggest contract that we've ever had in our history. And it was a sizable jump. It was, going from million and a half contracts to a $20 million contract.
Wow.
And we are a mission-driven company. Everything we do has to either improve somebody's life or make it safer. And if it doesn't do one of those 2 things, then we just don't do it.
That's a heck of a mantra, Mark. I wonder, would you attribute a large part of the success of the early part of the startup to the your ability to network and find the right connections with the right people, or was this just being in the right place at the right time for you guys?
Both.
A little of both.
Both. We had a competitor that started about 5 years before us, and they were just too early.
Mm-hmm.
And, they were smart. They'd all come out of Stanford and MIT, and they were just too early. And so that they sold the company to a business that manufactured equipment in that industry, but all the people left after about a year. For us, it was the right place, right time, plus the networking,
Right.
because nothing matters until a sale is made.
Yeah, it helps to know the right people in the right places. And I don't want to minimize the accomplishments. It's one of the things that I subscribe to is that luck is when opportunity and hard work meet. And so when the people who say, oh, yeah, it must be nice, well, they didn't see all the hard work that went in beforehand for this thing to actually work out, right? And so when you say they were too early, like some of the competition, I wonder uh, when you say too early, is that too early with the technology? Is that too early with the opportunity? Is that just being impatient?
Too early in the marketplace.
Right.
So the market wasn't quite as mature, wasn't as ready when they started. And when we started, the market was hungry for what we do and was willing to spend money.
So a large part of the work that you do is like government contracts or like big contracts with big companies and things like that.
So we do some work as subcontractors to prime government contractors,
Okay.
but primarily the majority of our work is directly for the government.
So what's your approach then? Because I'm a little bit unfamiliar, I guess, with the like contract and bidding process for like securing things like this, obviously because I'm just removed from that whole thing. What does it look like for you in terms of setting yourself up for success and how you prepare for making those pitches and how you put yourself out there and how you build those necessary relationships so that you increase the likelihood that the contracts you do bid on they turn out to be successful for you?
Well, we take a long-term view and we create relationships where we give knowledge away. So we will educate our customer long before they ever have a need. But by the time they have a need, they look at us as subject matter experts.
Right.
And so they want to come back to us for their solution. And being a small business, they can award us a certain amount of, sole source, which is still, government doesn't like sole source. So we will have to bid. The interesting thing is a lot of times what we're seeing is where it used to be, you bid a number and that you had to create. Now the government, in our case, will say, this is what we're willing to spend. And it's a firm fixed price contract. So in other words, we're going to give you X dollars. You're going to deliver this to us. And it's up to us whether we can do that or can't do that. We're taking the risk. And so, the bidding is actually more of what can you do? What can we expect? When can we expect it? That sort of thing. It's not really a dollar amount. The dollar's been set by the customer.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how throughout this process, I guess, because it's a different approach to the whole customer acquisition arena, right? Like if we were to be running ads on social media or on TV or on radio or something, like we would have a clear path for them. Once they find you, they, engage with the business. But in this case, I wonder if you could kind of elaborate a little bit on what that customer experience looks like. And then how do you measure the success of the work that you do to successfully get that customer?
So, the one social media we do really kind of work on and push, of course, is LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
because we know that, those government agencies are on LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn. And we invite people to follow, but we do go to conferences and we meet people. And then we've also been lucky. And so many entrepreneurs just don't attribute enough to luck. I don't know how many speeches I've sat through or presentations where a founder of a successful startup gets up there and talks about, I call it the wonder of me speech, how
Right.
great they are,
Yeah.
right? And they forget to tell you that they had a lucky break at some point.
Yes.
And we've had a number of those, one of which a friend invited me to a dinner. He didn't know that I had changed careers and didn't know what I was doing. And it happened to be a retired admiral. And his whole talk was lack of innovation in national defense. And so after dinner, I went and introduced myself, and we talked about what he talked about. And I did not go up and tell him what I did. I didn't want to sort of be a self-promoter.
Right.
Eventually, he asked, hey, well, what do you do? And I told him, and he literally pointed his finger at me and said, see, it's small companies like you that create all the innovation. That's where innovation comes from. And by the way, I'm on the board of a large defense contractor. Would you like to meet them?
Wow.
And he has taken an interest in us and has opened doors for us. He has been a great, advisor to us. And so that's luck, right? And those are the breaks we get that are helpful to us. And, there are things we wouldn't have if that random dinner would not have happened. So it was really great. And that's led to him introducing us to people. And that's how that network is. It's like the pebble in the water, and it just ripples and ripples and ripples. And, an introduction from him to one of the current Navy people where he says, hey, these people are really good at what they do. And his reputation's on the line, right? So he's not going to do it just because he likes us. He does it because he believes that we're good at what we do.
That takes a lot to establish that too, that reputation of being good at what you do, so that when you do find yourself in that place at the right time, that you have the evidence to substantiate the claim that you can do the thing you say you can do. I think that's really powerful in the process that you guys deploy in how you're, you know, acquiring new business. And it's a refreshing and a unique approach, because a lot of people are looking for ways to systemize and automate things and make it really predictable. And I get a sense, Mark, that you're the kind of guy that just likes to go and shake people's hands and just see what they're up to, and let the chips fall where they may. And there's some there's something refreshing about that.
Oh, I don't think there's a substitute for talking to people and listening to what their problems are and listening to what their challenges are, and then figuring out if we can bring a solution. It's not always the case. Sometimes the answer is, you don't need AI for that. Or if someone tries to sell you an AI solution, they're just taking your money. And we've turned away some business that way because first of all, AI is not that, advanced yet to do what you're wanting to do, but more important, you don't have enough data to make it work. But going out and talking to people, and also we have the work we've done, we're easy to do business with, right? And that's important too, because that's a relationship builder. If you deliver a great solution, but you've been a pain in the rear to somebody, they may like the solution, but they may not like you.
Right.
So we make sure that, not only do we deliver what we say we're going to deliver, and we do it on time, and we're pleasant and easy to deal with. That way we can say later down the line, we can call that customer and say, hey, we're talking to another customer. Do you mind if they call you and ask about our past performance? And most often the answer is no, not at all. Tell them to give us a call. And then we get that endorsement of somebody we've actually worked for saying they did a phenomenal job and they were easy to do business with.
Yeah,
and the first time I ever heard from one of our customers is, hey, thanks for the work you do, and thanks for being easy to do business with. And my response was, you mean to tell me that some of your providers are not easy? He said, you'd be shocked. Most of them are a pain in the rear.
Yeah, that goes a long way. Having somebody with that social proof, right? That lended credibility of somebody being like, yeah, these guys know what they're up to. They got it dialed in. They know they can solve that problem that you have, and then it's not an uphill battle, right? Because that's something that a lot of people who are selling to strangers have to face, is that you don't know me, you don't know what I'm up to, so I'm going to do my best to establish that trust and authority and all the other things. But if a friend of a friend just said, hey, these guys already know what they're up to, then you can skip over that part and just get right to business, where you go over, okay, so what's the situation look like? What's this? How can we solve that? How do we address that, right? So when it comes to the deployment of some of these new technologies, AI and things like that, what are you doing in the way of like using it or leveraging it to help you with part of that sales process, or are you at all? Are you kind of avoiding it and keeping arm's length away from it all?
No, not at all. So one of the things we do is we start with the end in mind, right? We ask our customer, how do you going to want this deployed? Because it can be different product if they say we have a big data center in Colorado that this is going to go back to, and you've got all the compute in the world you want. Then if somebody says, well, this is going to be on a platform and it's got to be at your solution is going to have to be at the edge. We've got so much space on the platform and it can't weigh more than this. And so then we know we have to design a solution that is small. This is if it's not in Colorado with a big data center. It's small, it's lightweight, and it does what it's supposed to do. But knowing that going in, we can figure out what they want. The other thing is, we're very fortunate we have people here that know how to integrate and know how to build for integration, so that when our product's delivered, it's not like, hey, it works great. And then they say, well, yeah, but how do we integrate it into what we want it to do? And the answer there could potentially be, well, we don't know. So we make sure that part of the deliverable is you've got something that was designed like you wanted it to be, usable like you want it to be usable, and the integration's already handled.
That's useful. So, Mark, we're kind of coming to the end of our time together here. So to kind of close things off and wrap things up, I wonder if you can kind of look into the future at some of the goals that you're aiming at, some of the things that you're kind of excited that are coming down the pipeline from the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. So what we're looking forward to is, one, continuing to diversify. So larger projects for DoD. And the other thing we're looking forward to is leveraging into the private sector. So providing solutions for the private sector that's sort of a derived from these government projects, but we say, hey, we could take that solution, modify it, and sell it into the private sector. And then we'll sort of have I call it the 2-lane highway, right?
Right.
So one portion of the business is government, the other's private.
So branching off into that private sector, what sorts of challenges and things that you see that are kind of going to, you know, hinder that or keep you from getting there? What are you looking to overcome?
One is finding the biggest one is finding the right market.
Right.
Because I think where a lot of early stage companies fall is they fail to validate the market that they're chasing. So we've got to make sure and avoid that pitfall. And then, pick the vertical that's going to really value what we do and going to be willing to pay for it again and again and again. Because, the great thing about moving to the private sector is if we can transfer something into the private sector, the idea there is it's going to be on a SaaS basis.
Right.
So what nice, let's call it a deep and narrow vertical will pay us monthly, annually, and just keep going and going and growing.
Right. That's all really important things to consider. And as a startup and as um a business that's looking to grow into these new verticals, into these new spaces, there's all types of considerations that you have to make, all kinds of people and teams that you have to build and things that you'll have to overcome along the way. So it's very ambitious of you to be aiming for, continual growth and opening up the potential for opportunity for you and for others. And that's admirable work, Mark. I think what you're up to is very useful and very powerful. And the mission that you mentioned that you're on, really just puts that whole thing into a nice little package in terms of just the way that or the direction that you guys are taking. So kudos to you and the hard work that you're doing. Listen, if to close things off here, if there was a piece of advice that you could offer somebody out there who is, up to similar things, who's facing similar challenges, what would that piece of advice be, Mark?
Take care of your people.
Mm,
If you take care of your people, they'll make your life easy and they'll take care of your customer.
very simple, but
Absolutely.
often overlooked. It is one of those things I can tell you from in my early 20s, I went through about 35, 37 different jobs, I think it was, before finally settling on entrepreneurialism in my mid 20s. And so yeah, take care of your people is definitely one thing that is often overlooked, although the probably one of the more fruitful things that you could do as a somebody running a business. So super sound advice, Mark. If somebody wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain further or perhaps work with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Just reach out by email. It's Mark at analyticalai.com.
Beautiful. Make sure to link to that and the LinkedIn there in the show notes for the episode. So for anybody that's watching and listening, if you want to get in touch with Mark, that's how you'll do it. If you want to get in touch with me and my team for any of your marketing needs, you can visit nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, Mark. We'll see you all in the next episode.